Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I am Dr. Pradeep Bhawal dealing with the subject of EU ETS and carbon trading. I hope you found my previous videos useful. In the previous videos, I discussed about the greenhouse gas and its impact, EU ETS mechanism and how EU ETS mechanism is helping to fight against climate changes. In EU ETS, one of the issues is carbon leakage. I shall be discussing about how the CBAM is going to fight against carbon leakage. We shall be following question and answer to discuss this topic. Let's begin. Today's questions are: what is CBAM? Its working concept, how CBAM shall help fight against climate change, how shall this be implemented, and what are the main challenges or constraints, how this is going to impact common EU citizens. Let's begin. Now, what is CBAM? The full form of CBAM is Cross-Border Adjustment Mechanism. And this mechanism is designed to create a level playing field for trade and climate policy. Let's see the key points. EU producers and importers to EU pays the carbon tax under similar scheme and similar carbon prices, which satisfy the conditions of the level playing field for trade. Next is that eliminate the concept of carbon leakage phenomena as much as possible and establish a fair trade in EU with respect to carbon tax. That means this carbon leakage is one of the detrimental impact against for the fight against climate changes, because under these situations only the emission is shifted from one geographic location to another geographic location. We will discuss more about this in the coming slides. Let's go ahead. Next question is working concept, how the CBAM is working. Now first, to understand the CBAM working, first we need to understand what is carbon leakage. So in one of my previous video, I already explained in detail about the carbon leakage, but I am explaining in brief now to continue discussion on the subject of CBAM. Now in brief, carbon leakage means shifting of carbon intensive industries outside EU and importing the product to EU for consumption. Now let's see what are the pros and cons of this kind of situation. Positive part is that as the companies are going out of the EU region, so they are not, and if they're shifting it to a place where there is no carbon tax, that means they can save money by not paying carbon tax and then importing back to EU, so that the total cost to at EU is expected to be less. However, there may be some logistics cost, but the main purpose of carbon leakage is to produce in a place where there is no carbon tax. Now, what are the disadvantages in this situation, or the detrimental impact of it is that this impact negatively the competitive market in the EU. That means one set of companies who are producing in EU are paying the tax, another set of companies who are not producing EU is not paying the carbon tax. So it's not creating a good trade situation. Now, second thing is that the global emission remains same. This carbon leakage doesn't help in climate change, because it's only shifting from one location to another location. It may have a detrimental impact in terms that the places where it is going for production, there may not have any rules and regulation related to the carbon, and then people may be reluctant to do any kind of improvement. So it is more dangerous. And of course, the industries are going from EU to non-EU zone, so the employment opportunity in EU can be also impacted. So let's see the next impact. Next, understanding what we need to do, the free allowances. All of you must have heard about the free allowances, which is also explained in one of my previous video. Now, to counter this concept of leakage, what the European Union did is they, for this carbon intensive industries, they gave some kind of free allowances. What is the concept of free allowances in a very layman manner? For example, you are producing 10 million ton of steel. I'm taking an example of steel, and there is expected import from external companies to EU is approximately 4 million ton. These numbers are very imaginary, so it's not the real number. Now, what is happening? It is expected the EU companies has to fight only for the 4 million ton, not for the entire 10 million ton. So that means the European Union decided, okay, a partial compensation can be given so that they can fight against the import without the carbon tax. So they got a concession for the 4 million ton. But in reality, what is happening, this concession is distributed over all 10 million ton. That means that for the entire 10 million ton, the average price goes down. So it really it can help partially to fight the carbon leakage, but it is not really a foolproof or doesn't give a total tools to fight against the carbon leakage. Let's see these points a little bit more carefully. So this tackles the issue of carbon leakage partially, as I told, but this gives the EU producers some relief, but it is not creating a full level playing ground. However, this does not give a total level playing ground. And then also if the carbon leakage occurs, it means emission shifted from one place to another place, as I was explaining. So it is not really helping anybody in this way. And free allowances, if the free allowances reduces, the EU companies may feel little bit of less pressure to deal with the EU market, and they may be little bit of reluctant, this is my opinion, to go for total emission free production concept. So let's go ahead a little bit more about this concept. So to tackle this situation, that means first we have a carbon leakage problem, trade balancing, not trade balancing, trade platform. That means it's a similar platform or similar level issues, and then there was an attempt to address it by free allowances, which is not fulfilling the total requirement, satisfying the requirement partially, and that's why they introduced the cross-border adjustment mechanism. Let's now jump a little bit deeper. The exporter to EU zone also, now the concept is that exporter to EU zone is also need to reduce their own emission in comparison to the EU companies. This is the first objective of this one, and they also need to buy emission allowances to fulfill the requirement of emission level in EU, which is zero. So because if all the companies in EU are paying carbon taxes because they are not able to go to a zero level, now similar carbon taxes will be also applied for anybody who is importing goods to EU. So this is the main concept of it. Now let's go that a little bit more, that how CBM shall help fight against climate change. So this we need to understand. So what is happening, that fight against climate change means that we have an ultimate goal to have a zero net emission. That means there may be emission somewhere, there may be absorption somewhere, but overall the emission level should be, net emission level should be zero. This is the objective. Now what is happening after introduction of CBAM, that the CBA mechanism is actually forcing, or you can say encouraging, other countries, non-EU countries also to follow a similar mechanism like EU ETS system, because otherwise they will not be able to export their material to EU. So this is the main fundamental concept. And this imposition is like a kind of imposition through trade route, will also encourage the government of other countries to introduce their own ETS system, emission trading systems, because no government will like to give the taxes to European Union. Instead of that, they would like to keep the taxes revenue within their own country so that they can use this money for their own development, own carbon reduction project. So this will also encourage all the other countries like India, China, Brazil and everyone to quickly develop their own carbon trading mechanism, which is actually happening. And this has been accelerated after the CBAM came into the picture, because there is, as I told, that nobody wants to lose the revenue. No country wants to lose the revenue. Now, this is one process by which we can achieve the global impact on the emission reduction action. So far, there are a lot of discussions, and there is a COP platform. Recently, there was a COP 29, and several discussions are taking place, but there is no global standard or global platform which will be responsible for accounting and taking necessary action to reduce the emission. But this attempt will indirectly forces the people to follow a similar pattern of EU ETS, and then eventually they will be encouraged, and we expect that this will be actually creating a path towards a global standard and global action, so which is very, very important. Now we go to the next question, that how shall this be implemented? Because the philosophy and the structure was really good. At least personally, I am very much impressed with the CBM concept, and which has several positive points. But now, the moment we are going into the implementation phase, in the implementation phase is much difficult than the philosophical phase. But European Union has suggested certain mechanism by which the implementation will take place. So let's go the initial assumptions what the EU has decided to the path of implementation. First of all, that they restricted this CBM to a limited amount of material, which is very highly carbon intensive. Instead of opening for everything, then it will be a huge administrative work, and it will be very difficult to manage both the European Union administration as well as the administration of the country from where the material is produced and exported to EU, also the company. So they restricted first with the 6 most carbon intensive products. So they are steel, cement, aluminium, power, fertilizer, and hydrogen. So if anybody is exporting any things in these categories, then they will be subjected to CBAM mechanism. So let's go one step forward, that how this shall be implemented. Now, what are the concept of implementation? First is that the step one, that anybody wants to export material to EU in these 6 categories, they have to declare their carbon footprint. That means what is the emission, total emission taking place for producing such material. Now, total carbon footprint or total emission means there may be indirect emission, there may be direct emission. Now, what is direct emission? That means the emission which is taking place directly in their factory, in their place of production. Indirect emission is that the emission which is taking place in a different place from where the material or services are coming to produce this material. For example, in aluminum industry, if they are using a huge amount of electricity, that means their indirect emission is the emission which is taking place due to the production of electricity. So there is a total emission footprint they have to declare. It is exactly same as applicable for the European Union countries. So now I was just talking about that what are the key factors of this emission. So key factors means your production efficiency and energy mix. So these two will actually determine your carbon footprint, either in EU or outside EU. Everywhere is the same. Now in the steps 2, they are calculating what is the CBM tax. If a company is declaring that how much is the total emission multiplied by the carbon price, and then becomes the CBM carbon tax. Now the third step is that they are called accounting adjustment. That means any company who has already paid tax into the production zone or the origin of the material, then to avoid the double count, that will be adjusted with the total calculation of CBAM and the net amount to be paid by the company as a carbon tax. So let's see these things in a pictorial manner. You can see this is the European Union calculation. That means you calculate the embedded emission, and they also need to calculate the embedded emission. Then it is adjusted with the free allowances. For example, embedded emission is 10 million ton, and you have free allowances of 4 million ton. Then your net taxable amount is 6 million ton, and then you have a price multiplied with the 6 million ton is the total amount of carbon tax what people need to pay. Now, in a similar mechanism for import material, you declare the total amount of emission, and then there is a CBAM CO2 price, and there is a CO2 price in the country of origin, and if you subtract them, then you get a net price. Net price multiplied by the embedded emission will give you the total amount of carbon tax. So both the methodology of calculations you can see, and this is how this will be implemented. And once the full CBM is implemented, these free allowances will shall go away, and this will be absolutely comparable, because now there are a lot of things are not known yet about the CBM. So the Commission is not totally removing the free allowances at the first phase, but once these things will be more and more clear and known, then the free allowances will also go away. I hope you have understood in a simple way. So I'm just giving it one more explanation by simple numbers that will may be useful for you to understand. For example, there is a total embedded emission of 100 ton of CO2 equivalent, and then there is a EU price is 100 euro per ton, and say for example the country of origin may be India or China, their price is 30 euro per ton. So net is 70 euro per ton to be paid in EU, and then they need to pay 7,000 euro. So this is the concept, and this calculation may explain you in a simple way. Now, this is, as I told before, I just repeated this one. This encourages the company outside you to adopt greener technology, because if they are not adopting greener technology, then they will remain at a very high amount of emission. Whereas the similar thing, if the European Union companies are investing and they are improving, then instead of 100 ton, they may be emitting 80 ton or 60 ton. So then they will be in an extreme disadvantage if they are not improving. So this will actually put a kind of pressure or force on the companies to improve themselves. So basic philosophy is that either you decarbonize or pay a price. This is the simple summary of CBAM mechanism. Now we go to the next question. What are the main challenges? So this is, again, I told the implementation may not be very easy, so there will be always some challenges. So I tried to summarize in a simple way some of the important challenges. Let us see what happens. So first challenges will come from poor or developing countries. So it may happen that they may not have enough money or technology to quickly adopt the low emission production facilities. In that case, their base emission will remain high, and then this product will not be able to compete after CBM in European Union market. So they will be forced to improve, but they don't have enough resources. In that situation, it may happen that they may face economical issues, and it will be eventually represented by a social issue. So there is a risk of social issues if this is not tackled properly. Next is the decision was formed by EU. I think it was not very elaborately debated in WTO, because it's world trade is quite important, because important and exported, and some of the EU non-EU countries may challenge this decision of EU. Though it is a good decision, in my opinion, it helps in climate changes. There is no doubt about it, but there may be some issues coming in terms of WTO agreement. So we already know that countries like China, India, and everybody has complained against this CBAM to the World Trade WTO, and then debates are going on. Now, for achieving successful global impact, next very important that monitoring and reporting emission is very important. So it should be fair reporting with a fair auditing mechanism. If it is not reported carefully, then the whole CBAM may lose their objective. And also there is a possibility that some places, some companies may under-report, which is basically something like wrong reporting or fraud reporting to increase their profitability. So this will be one of the biggest challenge for CBAM to tackle this kind of situation, which is very likely to happen, because this will be costing an amount of money which is not insignificant. It will be a significant amount of money which these companies need to pay if they want to make a trade with European Union. So this is, in my opinion, the biggest challenge. So there will be a lot of cooperation, administrative cooperation is needed. Now, next question comes that if it is happening like this, then there will be some kind of revenue coming to European Union. You can see that if somebody is not improving, so they have to pay the carbon tax, and this carbon tax will be coming as a revenue to EU. Now, question is that how this revenue shall be used. Shall be used by EU countries, or shall be given back to the countries of origin from where the material is coming, so that the country of origins are actually using this money for their own development. So there are a lot of debates about it. There is this clarity, I think, will come. And in the recent COP29, there was a huge discussions regarding CBAM, taxes, and there are a lot of discussions, compensations, and so on and so forth. But this is a good start. Now, another thing we need to understand that there can be social impact of CBAM. So the moment the CBAM is coming, so there will be no free allowances. So we will all be paying the full taxes, full carbon taxes. That means our cost of goods, once we are coming from the market, will be going up. But it may be cheaper if you see a global impact, that if the atmosphere is bad and if the climate is bad, the amount of damage which can take place will be far bigger than the amount of tax we will be paying. So this is the opinion of my opinion, not only my, many people have a similar opinion. Now, this I explained a little bit more detail for a common EU citizen. As I told, as the CBAM is getting in, the free allowances will go out and the carbon cost will be going up. And the whole carbon cost will be passed on to the citizen, because the company will not really run business at loss. So we will be actually paying the tax. So this, we need to be prepared on this. All the EU citizen will be paying the tax for the consumption of goods and production of goods in EU. But it is good that now it will be having a level playing field as far as the business in EU is concerned. Now again I repeat that this extra cost what we are paying may be much less compared to the potential damage which can take place due to the change of climate. So with this I am coming to the end of my presentation. So I just little bit of summarizing. So we explained about CBM is first initiative to influence the carbon market and climate action beyond their own boundaries, because this is really impacting everyone who is having a trade relation with EU. Now it tries to establish a level playing ground for trade of EU and non-EU companies in the area of carbon tax. Countries around the globe shall be encouraged to establish emission trading system. That means they will be encouraged to take this matter very seriously, and revenue earned in this process shall help to accelerate the action against climate change. And it is recommended to discuss the impact on developed and developing nations. As I told, this is also heavily discussed in COP29, that if certain thing is coming suddenly, then what will happen? Then they may be totally out of the competition, and kind of global trade disturbances might come. But European Union has decided to go phase one. Now the trial phase is going on for almost 3 years, so that everybody has a time to gear up themselves, develop their own system, develop their own ETS mechanism, and from 2026 this will be fully implemented with financial impact. So with this, I'm coming to the end of my presentations. So thank you very much to be with me to the end, and I hope this was useful for you, and hope to see you in my next presentations. So till that time, let's do something better, something to do our art better. Thank you and have a nice day. Bye.